Good morning or good afternoon if you are in the country of Spain. This is John Chen with the next edition of Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. By the way, if you're watching this here on any of the social media streams, hit subscribe, share, like, or comment. You can also get this podcast here at engagingvirtualmeetings.online, where it'll be listed on any one of your 13 favorite podcast locations. Did you know the number one location is still Apple Podcasts, followed closely by Spotify? And for those October 1, 2, and 3, we are going to the Engaging Conference. I'm hosting the Engaging Conference for the first time hybrid. That's right, 150 of you can attend in person here in Seattle, Washington. Just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON. All right. Meanwhile, what's been great this week? I just got back from producing. I want to give a shout out to Jenna Finesse Frankie and the many people who put on the Washington Black-Owned Business Excellence. There are 5 leaders. They have worked together to really elevate Black-owned businesses here in Seattle, and I've been honored that they have chosen me as their producer for the last 5 years. And this one was one of the best. We got a Black-owned facility that's near Lakewood, Washington. It's south of SeaTac, where our airport is. And the venue was beautiful. I got a new 6-camera setup for this one, and that all the tech worked out. It did take me a day to get all the microphones to work, but that's another story. I'll share that for later. But most of all, King 5 came out and covered them and really got a chance to celebrate that. So I thought that was a great piece. So a happy Black History Month to all of you. We love to call this Blasian power, is when Black and Asians collaborate. Okay, speaking of collaborate, I got this amazing guest, Lux. I believe maybe introduced us, or that she commented on a post, and I go, I got to meet this person. She's a facilitator and experience designer who spent thousands of hours on Zoom, which is like the no-brainer for me to like put her on this part. She's one of the top facilitation voices on LinkedIn, and I've seen her comment on pieces. She runs a 5-week live online cohort-based course called Breakthrough Facilitation. Please welcome Gwyn Wansbrough. Oh my gosh. Gwyn, can I say all these things? I had to leave half of it out. That's so good, right? You have so much stuff on your bio.
Yes, I'm blushing here. I'm blushing because you are like the virtual engagement guy who I think one of the first books I bought during the pandemic was your Engaging Virtual Meetings, when we were all trying to figure these things out. And I feel like I'm still trying to figure them out. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And here's the little secret. We're all still figuring it out, right? It's really, every day is still something. And now, like with the advent of more hybrid, or even, people want virtual to be better. We're all still trying to figure it out. And so, yeah, amazing. By the way, Gwyn is calling in from the beautiful city of Barcelona, one of my favorite cities in the whole world. I actually developed a geocaching course all the way from Sagrada Familia to the Ramblas. And so I actually know your city, kind of well, and I appreciate that. Well, what's it like today? What's happening in Barcelona, Spain today?
Well, as we were just talking about, we've just entered in these drought restrictions, water restrictions, because we've been in a drought for the last several months. And Spain is no stranger to droughts and lots of sunshine, but it's been, we've kind of hit a little bit of a limit. So we are entering in these water restrictions today. I've never actually lived with water restrictions before. So this is a whole new territory. I know folks from California will know all about that, but otherwise, sunny days, beautiful sunsets, and we just have to use less water.
Water, precious resource. If you read any of the other books around water, and it just says there's some science fiction that says that water becomes like gold in the future because of its scarcity. So
that's it. Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, Gwyn, for my friends who don't know you, do me a favor. Tell us who you are and what you do in your own words.
Great. So my name is Gwyn Wansbrough, and I call myself an experience designer And I'm just somebody who's endlessly curious about how to make group experiences more meaningful and engaging, but also worthwhile. So I worked in the field of facilitation for 15 years, in-person facilitation, before the pandemic hit, and had met just the most incredible people around the world who call themselves facilitators. I didn't even know what that meant 15 years ago, and was very lucky to be introduced to this whole world. But I always thought that facilitation would only be that kind of like a powerful group experience in person. And then the pandemic hit. And as I'm sure most people who are listening right now probably had the experience of having just to pivot so quickly online. And I was a total skeptic. I had been doing remote work before that because it was a global organization. So we did all of our work basically remotely, but all the training still had to be in person. So when the pandemic hit, I was a total skeptic. I really honestly didn't believe that you could do the same kind of meaningful work online as you could do in person. And then I led my first session, and I remember experiencing some of that magic, that we had in person. And, it was full of tech glitches, and I fumbled a lot through my first online session, but I did see the spark that I was used to seeing in-person experiences. So it made me very, very curious about how we could learn more about how to make experiences engaging. So I started a weekly newsletter called The Quest, and it's kind of where I share the coolest things that I'm learning about virtual facilitation, because I know, like you said, we're all just kind of trying to figure this out. We haven't written the playbook, although this comes very close to the playbook. And then I launched a course called Breakthrough Facilitation that really teaches people how to design and lead really engaging online experiences. So that's what I do.
There you go. And this is what you click on the website. I have not subscribed to this, so I'm going to subscribe right now to this. And so
great.
people who are listening to this, make sure and check that out. I look forward to email letters like that. What was that hallmark moment, when you figured out like it could actually be done? That you got to have that belief that it's possible. Even if you think it's possible, you have to like convince yourself at some point. So I'm kind of curious, what was the moment in that virtual meeting that said, "Oh, wait, we could do this. I think we can do this."
Yeah, I think it really came home at the end, because I was so nervous during the whole session that I was kind of going through the activities and this and that, but it really came home in the end, where I just put in just to close us off, the last thing we did, what's one word that describes how you feel at the end of the session? And there were probably about 40 people on the call. And it was just a cascade of responses from, connected to empowered to inspiring. And this was in the very middle of a very strict lockdown here in Spain. So the group was here.
Yeah.
And so it was, my eyes even got a little watery, because I just thought, wow, what people are experiencing right now. And if we can elicit that kind of connection and emotion, through virtual experiences, so much is possible.
You'll probably love this one. This was given to me by Kathy Armias, and I wrote about it in the book, and it was called Just One Word. And she was trying to debrief a class in Hong Kong, and she asked them to write a word like on paper. So you get the next part, like we call that chatterfall now, or simul chat. When the chat is so it has so much information in it all at once. But she did this, which is like people wrote it out, and then there's this next level of human engagement for writing it on a piece of paper, like seeing people's handwriting. I think there was another real connected aspect to it. And so what I've told people too, you get to the quantum physics levels, we're humans. We're designed to connect. And that everyone who said it was impossible wasn't paying attention. It says that we're designed to connect, and as humans, we can connect with people even though they're millions of miles away. right?
Yeah,
And so that you can feel that connection. It's just that you have to know that it's possible, and then look for all the techniques because just it's slightly different enough that you can't use all the things that you did in person. You have to look at it in a different way.
that's right. Yeah, 100%. But that connection is for me what's so exciting,
Mhm.
and that's I think what a lot of people who suffer through meetings that aren't, designed with any of this in mind are really it's really that connection, that is so lacking.
Well, maybe you'll appreciate this, Gwen. I tell people what's my real mission. I said my real mission is to end suffering.
Yeah.
Right? It's to end virtual and hybrid suffering, where you're sitting out here in the middle of virtual land, right in front of a computer, and it's so painful.
That's
It's
right.
just so bad.
Yeah, and to follow on from that, one of the things that really gets me kind of riled up is when people are like, "Oh, you can't do that on Zoom." I'm like, try me. Let's try it. There's so much you can do,
Oh
but
yeah.
I think it's like you said, you have to, it really starts from this belief that it's possible. And I absolutely, if there's one thing that I have learned through spending so much time on Zoom and spending exhausting time as well as engaging time, what I do know for certain is that it is possible,
Yes.
and it can be better, and it
Yes.
can, there's still so much. I feel like we're almost like we're still at the edge of this exciting frontier,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and that's what I'm excited. That's what really makes me excited.
You'll love this. One of my very good friends, unfortunately, she passed away from breast cancer, but she was an icon in the meetings industry. Her name's Elizabeth Glau.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some conversations where we were working on in the pandemic, we were working on a new meetings manifesto, right?
Yes.
And her biggest contribution was that she gave me this manifesto that she said, I want virtual meetings that are so good that I cry, that you cry, right? For a good reason, right? For a good, not for a
Yeah.
bad cause, but for a
Good
good
crying.
cause. And and I thought it's still profound to me this day that we can make virtual so good that people get emotional during it. And why not? You get emotional watching a movie. Why can't you get emotional? I think you have more opportunity to get emotional because this is not a movie. This is like real people really somewhere having real emotions, and that's I think what makes people emotionally react to something is when they truly connect. They connect on this deep cellular visceral level.
Yeah.
So, have you seen that in your virtual meetings? Like, is that one a marker of one of your higher?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's it's an interesting kind of thing that you put your finger on is the kind of like the emotions. How do
Yeah.
emotions work, in this virtual space? Because when you're in the in-person space, you kind of come in, like just take a workshop or a meeting, you come into the room, there's already this like kind of informal connecting. You're also already kind of picking up on the emotions in the room. And with the, excuse me, with virtual, you just don't have any of that. You come into literally a void. And it's really,
Yeah.
that's why the facilitator is so important, to start creating the conditions where people can feel that kind of sense of emotion. So, as you did, even when I joined the Zoom call before it was even being recorded, you were playing music, and it's like that elicits some kind of emotion that brought, in my case, it's like, whoa, that kind of gave me a little surprise. And then
Yes.
it kind of blifted my energy.
Yes.
And that is the kind of thing in the virtual space that becomes very, I would say even more important for the facilitator to be aware of and know how to, bring into the virtual meeting. Because without emotion, we're
Yes.
not connecting, we're not we're
Yeah.
not remembering,
Yeah.
we're not experiencing, we're not present. we don't, there's so many things that don't happen when you don't connect into that emotion.
Again, music, such a shortcut, right? If you're looking for hacks, music is the shortcut to people's emotions. You can play 3 seconds of any well-known song, assuming that you like it, right? I usually try and play, big hits and it immediately changes the mood in the place.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the other thing I was telling you about, Gwen, very few people are using it. Everyone has the capability too. It's 3 mouse clicks, and again, I use one where I can actually do it anywhere, but nobody needs that. Like all the tools are available today, right? The technique is that you share advanced computer audio, and you play Spotify or YouTube, and you put the volume down to like almost the lowest level. Now you have background music, and so again, technically it's there. But the technique is not there for people to say it's worth me to make 4 or 5 more mouse clicks. Gwen, before we move on, I gotta ask this part, right? Before there's so many other tangents I'm going to take with you, is when you attend a meeting, when you attend a virtual meeting, because you've probably been an attendee also, as well as leading lots of meetings. What has to happen for you for that meeting to be engaging? What are some of the best things that you've seen over the last 3 to 4 years?
Great. Amazing question, because I think the question you can see kind of from both the participants, from being a participant in virtual meetings, and also designing, facilitating, and also training people to lead virtual experiences. So I love this question because I'm also, when facilitators are notoriously like the worst participants in meetings because you're always
like
kind
doctoring.
of scanning for different techniques, and is the facilitator doing this? So I own the fact that I'm a notoriously difficult workshop participant, but it's really important. I actually go out of my way to put myself in the participant's shoes, because it's one way that I learn about what it's like from the participant's viewpoint to experience virtual.
Yes.
So one of the things, for example, for me, the start of the virtual meeting is absolutely key. And so I want to get an early signal, that the session leader is prepared.
Yes.
And has thought through that beginning of the meeting. And I know you've talked about it before, those first 5 minutes, and it's one of those things that facilitators keep coming back to, those first 5 minutes. How do you design and deliver them? And it's the truth of the matter, and this is what I experienced. So I definitely can relate to this, that your participants, most of them are coming in with 3 key questions on their mind.
Oh.
They want to know, is it worth their time? They want to know, can they trust the facilitator or the session leader?
Yes.
And they want to know, do I belong in this group? And you've got a very short window to answer yes, to get them to yes on those 3 questions. So is it worth my time? That's the kind of like, coming in and making sure that you're, if it's not, even if you're kind of forced to be in the meeting, you will do other things because there's other things that are calling your attention. So for me, things like, for example, and what I experienced with you today was in the meeting room, in the waiting room, yes, having something that starts to engage your participants. So I noticed, for example, you had a video playing, you had, kind of like some nice pictures and visuals. So I was in the meeting room, in the waiting room for a couple of minutes, but those couple of minutes just flew by, and I was like, gosh, this guy has actually gone to the trouble of organizing, and setting something up for me to be engaged with before I've even joined the call. So that's one thing that I really appreciate. The second thing is music. So when you come into the meeting, the virtual meeting, having music also, as we just talked about before, but it helps transition your participants into your virtual space. You're creating the tone, you're creating the kind of the environment which you can't, it's not like you prepare a physical space, but you can prepare that virtual space. The next thing is the warm welcome. So this is where it comes. Can I trust the facilitator? And that facilitator who is there, you can tell they're present, you can tell that they're prepared, they're welcoming people in. I often notice, for example, if they're calling people by name, John, it's great to see you. Great for you to be here. Gwen, thanks for being right on time. Kind of get that, the facilitator kind of creating that warm and welcoming environment. And then the next thing that I would look for, like in that, this is all happening in the first 2 minutes, of your session.
I'm trying to tell people, it's like your virtual meeting is one in the pregame, because you can't do this on the fly. You have to prepare and plan to do this.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And, so one of the next things that I look for is an immediate opportunity to engage.
Yes.
So we're not waiting for everyone to arrive. We're not, let's wait for another 5 minutes and get people. We are right away, who's ever in the room. If there's one person in the room, you have something that they can start engaging with right away. I usually use a prompt question.
Yes.
And, your name, where you're from, but I also include what I call a power prompt. And a power prompt is inviting people to answer a question that just invites a 1 degree more of kind of personal disclosure. So for example, and this, you really have to kind of think about this as the facilitator. What is an appropriate power prompt given the session purpose and my audience? I'm very, very aware that some questions work with some audiences and others do not. But even something like, in an audience that, there might be a little, maybe it's not like a board meeting, of high-powered executives coming in and getting business done. But for just a regular meeting, I do a lot of trainings, for example. Yes. Come in. What's one thing that made you smile today?
Yes.
In the chat, I can narrate all, if not, or if it's a big group, I'll narrate just a few of the key things. And it's gives you the facilitator, and it gives everyone in the group also some information about who is in this group, what kind of things are important to us. And oftentimes you start to see the patterns, you pull out the kind of patterns, and oftentimes it's relationships and things that your kids did, or meeting up with a friend, or talking to your, elderly parent, or whatever it is. And it's really, that kind of also just kind of brings people in. Then
I would love to. Oh, wait, before you hit one more, I just want to know, have you ever used an unpower prompt?
Tell me more about the unpower prompt.
Okay, I want to give a shout out to Beverly Bidmead and Cody Roche, who are watching us here on LinkedIn, or I'm sorry, on Facebook Live. An unpower prompt happened last year. We did a program called Learn-a-Palooza, and it's this 1-day conference of all these trainers. And so we had the after party. So they came to my house and they hung out. And so there were some people who didn't know each other. And so they said, well, we should all introduce each other. And so I said to the guy next to me, and I said, why don't you invent the prompt, right? And he goes, okay, fine. The prompt is, introduce yourself and tell us a boring fact about yourself. Now, this becomes an unpowered prompt, because here's what happened, right? Some people started with some boring facts, but halfway through, it erupted into this whole controversy where the fact that somebody shared is I use a bidet. And it dissected the whole group into team bidet and team I would never use a bidet. And what's so funny, it was such an innocuous question of tell me something boring about you.
Yeah.
That it was actually really engaging and powerful and vulnerable. And so I thought it was one of the craftiest things that I've seen. I definitely have reused that. That's an unpowered prompt.
Amazing. I love the unpowered prompt. It reminds me of another prompt, which a shout out to Kavan Chung for this one. I was starting his course, and one of the first prompt questions was, "What's something that you're really bad at?" And
Yeah.
the kind of positive psychologist in me immediately was like, I would reframe that to more of a positive, like, what's something I'm really good at, or, what's something I'm really proud of. And then I was like, actually, there's a lot in that question. There's a lot in that question that also, like you said, it's powerful. It's revealing. It's,
Yes.
there's an element of vulnerability to it. And I realized like with the answers, mine was like, I'm really bad at finding the first step in a big project, and then that kind of like actually was a bit of a light bulb, because I was struggling with that at that time. And I was like, whoa, I was just able to put that in words. And then you hear what other people are saying, and you're like, I'm bad at that too.
Yeah. To create
I'm really bad at
connections.
that.
You're like,
And you start connecting.
you just gave it a name. I didn't know what to call it.
Yeah, exactly. And that gets to that question of like, do I belong in this group? And those kinds of like the power prompt or the unpower prompts, now that thank you for that, are ways that you can, kind of confirm to yourself, yeah, I do belong in this group. I want to be here with these people.
There are people here like me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you had one more thing. I want to hear what's your one more thing.
Oh, very simple. Very simple thing that I do in my opening sequence. So I don't necessarily look out for this when I'm a participant, but there's one thing that I find is very simple, but it's it's a very powerful technique for a lot of different reasons, but one is to get all the voices in the room. So that's another thing I'm looking out for also when I'm in a meeting. I'm like, is this facilitator inviting all of the voices, or are they kind of just talking to one person? Like, hey, John, oh yeah, the report that, oh yeah, I'm going to send that to you next week. And everybody else is left out of the conversation.
Yeah, right. Right.
So the one very simple technique that I use is that I just invite people to unmute and say hi. And usually people will like then, wave and say hi. And there's a few ways you can do that.
Yes.
A few more creative ways. But the point is that it's very simple. It actually gets, everyone's voice in the room from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's quite powerful to hear, because so often, especially as a participant, you are like in silence. You're the only person that you're hearing speak is the facilitator.
Right.
So, or the session leader or the meeting leader. So it's one of those very simple engagement techniques that I find actually kind of catches people a little bit off guard.
It does.
But it's not too risky that people might, get overwhelmed and disengaged.
I think it does two things here. Well, so I do this in the beginning of a meeting, especially when there's just a few people, right? Once you get to 50 or something, that's a little bit more difficult. But I think that, Gwen comes on, I'm like, oh, good morning, Gwen. Right? Hey, do me a favor, just feel free to unmute and say good morning. All right. And sometimes I'll say too, you just want to test your mic. And so what it does as a side effect is, number one, is it engages somebody immediately, right? Sometimes then you can ask them a question, you have permission. The second piece is that it sends a signal to the attendees going, I can unmute in this meeting. Oh, yeah. You actually really want to hear me, right? Not just pretend like you don't want to just talk at me for 60 minutes. Because there's a difference. Like if like the host mutes everybody, right? And that's just a clear signal going, oh, whoa, okay, I'm just gonna stick to chat, or maybe, and I've also got admonished on chat. I'm like one of the top over chatters you're ever gonna meet. And then at some point and then I gotta stop. I gotta moderate that part. And then, but so those two things, if those happen to me, it tells me I don't belong in this group.
Yeah.
They don't want me. They don't want a top engagement. They really don't. They really want to like deliver their information for 60 minutes and not be disturbed. And I'm like, wow, right? Unless you have a really good reason. There's one guy, Marty Dickinson, does something called Speaker Speak Live, and he asks for everyone to not chat during the keynote. for
Yeah.
sake of, unless the keynoter asks for the chat, right? Unless the and I thought that that's an interesting time. I've seen other people actually turn off the chat on purpose. I think though that you have to tell people. Like I've seen people turn off chat and not tell anybody, and I'm like, whoa, who turned off the chat, right? But if you
Yeah.
verbally say, intentionally during
Yeah.
this section, we're going to turn off chat so you can hold your comments, so you can, for a purpose, saying, and we'll turn it back on afterwards. Like if you explain those things, and these are all things that go along with it. But I just wanted to share at least my insights of why I think that getting all the voices in the room, and then I got to share this one. Wait, Gwyn, have you ever asked everyone to unmute and do something?
And do something other
Like,
than say hello or, kind of wave or.
yeah, like here when I have a conference, say GSM Con, right? And so I'll get everybody on the count. This is how it would run for me as a facilitator. This is
Yeah.
virtual MC work. I'm right. All right. On the count of three, like we're actually on screen. 50 of us are on screen in front of 900 in-person attendees,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And I said, okay, and we rehearsed this, so they knew it was coming. Right? Everyone unmute, give me a chance to unmute, right? I see you unmute. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Jim. All right, unmute. On the count of three, we're all going to say Happy GSM Con. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And now you hear all this cacophony of voices. It's the one thing people say not to do on Zoom, but I actually think it really adds something, right? Wishing somebody happy birthday, right? Happy anniversary. You hear all these rooms, like everyone applauds. What? Hey, do me a favor on the count of three. Just thank our speaker, Gwen, for this amazing presentation, right? Unmute on three. Brah. And you hear all these voices all around.
Yeah.
And it should give you the sense that there are 50 or 100 or more people online with you.
I love that. I love that because it is, like you said, people are like, oh, don't get everybody to unmute. Oh, you can't hear everybody. I actually don't think it matters that you can't hear every single individual voice. It is what you said, that the kind of power of all those people kind of, speaking at the same time and hearing, their collective voice. There's another way I've seen that done. And I'm trying to think of who I probably learned it from some of the facilitators at Partners for Youth Empowerment, which was a facilitation organization I used to work at. And the facilitator did something that was called the shower of appreciation. I think there's a few different names for it, but where everyone unmutes. And I use this in my course. We do these little demos of a virtual experience. We give each other feedback and like all this kind of stuff. And at the end, we unmute and do a shower of appreciation where for 1 minute, everyone just says one word, strengths that they see in that person. And I've done it. I knew that from in-person facilitation. It's very powerful actually to be on the receiving end of that is the type of experience that actually, kind of does elicit a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
And I was like, how's this going to work in virtual? And it does work. It works actually extraordinarily well. And I've also seen, this is shout out to Cam Hauser, people recording that and then sending that little video clip to that participant after the session.
Is it CAM, Cam?
Yeah.
Or KAM? CAM?
CAM Hauser. Yeah.
Oh, I see it. He's an entrepreneur. I believe I got it right here. This one. This guy?
That's Cam. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, great. I'll put it in the chat. I have seen one word appreciation. Hold on. I'm trying to figure out where this. Oh, okay. So you know Jan Keck. Do you know Jan?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, absolutely.
So the gift that Jan gave me was cameras on. Oh, no, wait. I take it back. This is not Jan's. This is, do you know Adrian Sagar?
The name, I know the name. I know the name, but I don't know Adrian personally.
He wrote a book called Conferences That Work, and he gave me something called Cameras On, Cameras Off. And I feel it's one of the best ways to facilitate a debrief with a large group. So you tell everyone to turn their cameras off, right? And then you turn your cameras on, and then you say something, and when you're done, you turn your cameras off. And I tell, if 2 or more people come on, just stay on and just figure out the order, right, until you say your thing. And so what's really cool is like these cameras on, come on, and then I say something, right? Gwen, I love how you facilitated that. And then I turn my camera off. And so, it's a really, really cool, in 5 minutes, we debriefed an entire group of 50 or more people and got like all these really powerful nuggets out of it in a short amount of time. So it's called cameras on, cameras off. You
I love that because it's it's that sounds like also like a cool way to make that kind of like awkwardness of like, okay, who wants to share?
yes.
Waiting for people to come forward. The cameras, everybody turning their cameras off and then turning your camera on to speak. I love that. I haven't seen that done. So that's brand new. That's brand new for me.
Well,
Um,
the crazy version that I've done in a virtual MC is I would play. Let me see which is it's. Oh yeah, okay, freeze frame. So you remember the Jay Giles band, Freeze Frame?
yeah. Oh yeah.
So we play freeze frame, and so we tell everybody that every time they turn their camera on, they got to be in some ridiculous pose. So here, watch. I'll give you an example. Ready? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Right? Right? And so the thing is though, when you get like 50 people doing it, it made me laugh so hard the first time we did it. It is a little epilepsy ridden, but it is funny. I have to
It
admit.
is, yeah, that's awesome. I love, there's so many ways also, these are all just really cool ways of using the tools in a very simple way that you
Yeah.
have at your disposal. I still walk people through the instructions of like, how do you turn your camera
Yeah.
off and how do you turn your, mic on and off and make sure that everyone is, kind of like just up to speed. Most people now have spent some hours on Zoom to know, kind of more or less where to find the buttons. But that turning the cameras on and off, the other way I've seen that used that I use quite a bit. I'm actually going to facilitate a festival of facilitators in a couple of days' time, and I'm going to use this as one of the icebreakers. Is the cameras on and off as an icebreaker? So
Yeah.
again, right at the beginning of the experience, come out of that opening sequence. Everybody turn their cameras on or mics on, say hi. Let's start by seeing who's in the group with us today. So this is a facilitation, this is a festival. It's going to be the first session of a day-long facilitator festival online. Some folks know each other, other folks don't.
Yeah.
Everyone, and you get everybody on gallery view, then invite everybody to turn their cameras off. The facilitator reads, a statement. And if that statement is true for you,
Oh
you
yeah.
turn your camera on and you see who's on the screen,
Yes.
and then everybody turns their camera off again,
Super
and then you read
powerful.
another statement.
Oh.
So the trick here is kind of to start easy, then get a little bit deeper
Yes.
into, kind of questions that are slightly more vulnerable, and then to kind of end on a bit of a high note. So for example, you can start with questions like, I'm a pet parent, or I've got
Yes.
kids at home, or
Yep.
it's morning for me, or, just things that are very easy for people to answer.
Yes.
Then get into like some more of the, kind of surface some of the concerns and things that people might have. So you might say, if it's a new training group or a new course or something, you might say, I know less than 2 people in this group. Cameras on. Okay, by the time we finish this session, I'm hoping that you're going to know everyone in this group. Cameras off.
Wow.
I'm going to be leading the session on icebreakers. I feel awkward leading icebreakers. Cameras on. Well, that's going to be a lot of us because icebreakers are not always easy to lead. Cameras off. So you, as the facilitator, it also gives you a way of acknowledging some of the resistance, the concerns,
Yeah.
the fears that people have coming into a group session. And then I usually end up with like, oh, I'm excited, for the session. That's a cue for everyone to turn their cameras on.
I'm
And
breathing. You're right. There's an easy one. I'm breathing.
a
At least I'm
bit of
still
a trick
breathing.
question.
Well, Gwen, I have to admit, right? Every technique you say in here, I am a big fan of, and so I would really love someday that we actually get together and plan a meeting. Because I think the planning session will be very short, or it'll be like jazz. It'll take forever, but it'll be really fun, right? So, either way with that, do me a favor. Let's talk about this. You've sat in the seat now 15 or thousands of hours on Zoom. What do you think? What do you see as the future of virtual and hybrid for you?
Yeah. What an exciting question to contemplate for real, because it is, like I said, I really do truly believe that we are like on the edge
It just
of this frontier. And it seems like, everybody was forced into online during the pandemic. There was an explosion of experimentation. It was like this golden age,
yeah.
of learning virtual facilitation, how it worked, and the technology kind of came together so that it was easier for people than it had been in the past with all these clunky, online learning platforms and meeting platforms and stuff.
Yep.
There's every day there are, like, I learn about like new digital tools, and Stream Alive. I have to just a shout out to Stream Alive and Lux and the team, because if you don't know that tool for virtual, I would highly recommend you check it out, because it is, and this is one of the directions that I see us going, is that just making tech and engagement with digital tools much more frictionless.
Yes.
And so I think that's what Lux, Narayan, and the team have done such an amazing job on, because it's integrated right in the chat. So for example, you can pull up this amazing interactive map at the beginning of your session. Where are you based? People just write it in the chat and it comes up on an interactive map. You don't have to send them to another website or, have all these things showing up on people's mobile phones or anything like that. It's right in the Zoom chat.
We got to give a shout out to Lux here too, because if you want to see this in action,
Yes.
I put a link inside of here. It's called Create Highly Engaging Virtual Presentations. I like Lux's work so much, and I've seen a lot, right? I test almost every tool that comes out to see what it is. And I chose Lux's too because attendees don't have to learn something new, right? They do what they already know, chat. And Lux's tool then brings that out. And now we're also going to test. I mean, in hybrid, the in-person people do have to scan a code around that, but you can have multiple audiences, right, inside of that. And I think those are all super important things that are going to come out here. So check that out. It's on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 8 to 9 a.m. And I will show you what I've been telling Gwen, technology and technique, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the best in technology, and then I'm going to show and combine it with the best of technique. And what I mean by that is that I think you can really engage audiences now, both using technological stuff like Stream Alive and all the stuff that I'm using here. This is a little open broadcast software. And the other part is just all the technique that Gwen is talking about. Greeting people, welcoming, including them in, right? Gwen, one of my core principles, I allocate half of my presentation time for the audience to talk. Because it's impossible for you to be checked out, Gwen, when I got you spotlighted with me here on stage and we're having a conversation. And so I just think it's so important with that. And so I'm going to demonstrate all that with our good friends at Stream Alive. That is the future. All right. The future
Amazing.
is frictionless engagement. There, I said it. That's
it. Friction. I think you need to
that could be my next
trademark that or something. Frictionless engagement. And that is, I think what some people, what has made it difficult for some people to really engage with virtual, because it's clunky, or there's a lot of people who are too shy or ashamed even to admit, like, they're not tech, people, and they can't figure out like some of the simplest things. And they don't want to, admit that. And so it means that somebody can be excluded, from a meeting. And so I think there's also something that just kind of, you made me think about with Stream Alive and hybrid. Now, I don't do hybrid meetings, and I, all the respect in the world to people like yourself who do those meetings really well, because those are very, very difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
But I think it's like also the future of virtual meetings and the future of in-person meetings are going to learn from each other, bringing those virtual techniques. For example, one of the things that even if I went back to in-person right now, would have a very difficult time leading a meeting where I don't have a chat.
Yeah.
Because chat for me is like, that is a very important engagement channel.
And it's missing in in-person meetings, right? It's very difficult to get a chat. Although the chat used to be like, there used to be private chat, which is I'd lean over to Gwen going, what is happening in this meeting? Oh my God, right? And so that was kind of like the original version of a private chat. All right, well, here, we're almost out, but I do want to do this. I want to do speed round with you. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and I want you to give me your rapid fire answer. Okay. Favorite virtual platform?
Stream Alive.
Favorite technical tool that's not Stream Alive?
Mentimeter.
Oh, good one. Your favorite facilitation technique online?
Probably that camera's on and off.
Your favorite book?
The Art of Gathering.
Oh, good book. I actually saw Priya. That is a good one. Favorite food?
Spicy curry.
Boring fact about you?
Boring fact about me. I really like staying at home in the evenings and watching series with my husband. Singular.
And what do you love about your work?
I love connecting with people who are in different parts of the world and seeing that that kind of experience of people breaking through the screen, where the screens start to melt away and people really deeply connect.
There you go. Ready? You've been listening to Gwen here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Like I said, one day you're going to meet my friend Kathy Armias, who did a whole program called Breaking Through the Fourth Wall. Yeah. Right. That is so nice. Around that concept. Gwen, thank you so much. Like, I can't wait till one day that we, again, get a chance to either collaborate or meet in person. Check out Gwen's website. It's on there. And subscribe to her newsletter. I will be posting something, of course, from the... Oh, I might be getting a reference in the next newsletter. So that'll be
exciting.
Today. So Gwen, just to close out, what's one thing you want people to remember from today's program?
I just want people to remember that it is possible and everyone can be an exceptional virtual facilitator. Everyone has it in them. It's a muscle that we just have to keep flexing. That's what I'd love people to remember.
Excellent. Then, Gwen, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so glad we got a chance to meet, and I look forward to, again, meeting up and collaborating later.
Thank you so much. So do I, and thank you to everyone who is tuning in. This has been really, really fun.
Outstanding. All right, thank you. We've been here with Gwyn Wansbrough here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Make sure and subscribe, engagingvirtualmeetings.online, and make your first 5 minutes of your meeting better, please. Could you just do one thing? I think that's the inspiration that I got here from hanging around with Gwen. This is John with the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, and we look forward to seeing you online next time.